The moment I saw the bright orange tow warning sticker slapped on my Ford F-250's windshield, I knew my peaceful Tuesday morning was about to get a whole lot more complicated. I'd moved into Meadowbrook Estates in Scottsdale, Arizona just 3 months ago, and so far, the Homeowners Association had left me alone. The neighborhood was nice enough, with its perfectly manicured lawns and cookie-cutter Spanish-style houses that all looked vaguely the same. My house sat on the corner of Saguaro Drive and Desert Bloom Lane, which meant I had a slightly larger driveway than most of my neighbors. I'd chosen this place specifically because I needed the space for my work truck. I owned Quinn's Towing and Recovery, a business I'd built from the ground up over the past 8 years. What started as one used tow truck, and a dream had grown into a fleet of 12 vehicles and 23 employees serving the greater Phoenix metropolitan area. My truck wasn't just transportation. It was a rolling advertisement, wrapped in my company's blue and gold colors with the phone number plastered across the back window in letters big enough to read from a block away. The sticker on my windshield was dated that morning at 7:30. It was now 9:15, and I'd only been inside my house for about 40 minutes after getting home from an early morning call. Someone had been watching, waiting for their moment to strike. I peeled the sticker off carefully, reading the printed text. Violation: commercial vehicle parked in residential driveway. Per HOA CC and Articles Section 4.7.2, commercial vehicles are prohibited from overnight parking on any property within Meadowbrook Estates. Vehicle will be towed at owner's expense if not removed within 24 hours. Contact Patricia Zimmerman, HOA President. I stood there in my driveway, the Arizona sun already beating down hard enough to make me squint, holding this ridiculous sticker and feeling my blood pressure rise. Commercial vehicle. It was a pickup truck. Sure, it had my company logo on it, but it wasn't like I was parking a semi-trailer or a cement mixer in my driveway. I pulled out my phone and dialed the number listed on the sticker. A woman answered on the second ring, her voice sharp and clipped. Meadowbrook Estates, HOA, Patricia speaking. Hi Patricia, this is Yannick Quinn from 2847 Saguaro Drive. I just found a tow warning on my truck, and I think there's been a misunderstanding. No misunderstanding, Mr. Quinn. She said my name like it tasted bad. Your vehicle is in clear violation of our community standards. I've personally observed it parked in your driveway for weeks now. I gave you plenty of time to correct this on your own, but you've ignored our bylaws. I wasn't aware of any bylaws about my truck, I said, keeping my voice level. And nobody mentioned this when I bought the house. Ignorance of the rules doesn't exempt you from following them. You received a full copy of our CC and Articles at closing. It's not my responsibility to hold your hand through reading them. I counted to 3 in my head. Madam, with all due respect, it's a pickup truck. Half the driveways in this neighborhood have trucks in them. Those are personal vehicles. Yours is clearly marked as a commercial vehicle with advertising. Section 4.7.2 is very specific. No commercial vehicles, no boats, no RVs, no trailers. Nothing that diminishes the aesthetic appeal of our community. And if I don't move it, then at 7:30 tomorrow morning it will be towed. We have a contract with a very reliable towing company. I suggest you find alternative parking for your work vehicle. Perhaps rent a storage unit or park it at your business location. Good day, Mr. Quinn. She hung up before I could respond. I stood there staring at my phone, then at my truck, then at the houses around me. 3 houses down, my neighbor had a boat in his driveway covered with a tarp. 2 houses the other direction, someone had a cargo trailer that had been sitting there since before I moved in. But my truck, the one I used every single day, the one that was basically just a regular pickup that happened to have some vinyl graphics on it. That was the problem. I went inside and dug through my closing documents until I found the CC and Articus. The document was 73 pages of dense legal text, and sure enough, buried on page 42, there it was. Section 4.7.2, Prohibited Commercial Vehicles, defined as any vehicle bearing commercial signage, lettering, or markings indicating business use. But there was something else interesting. Section 8.3 outlined the HOA's authority to enforce violations, and it specifically stated that the HOA board had to provide written notice of violations and allow a 30-day cure period before taking enforcement action. The sticker on my windshield was the first notice I'd received, and they were threatening to tow in 24 hours. I called my lawyer, Marcus Rodriguez, who'd handled my business incorporation and contracts. After explaining the situation, he confirmed what I'd thought. They can't tow after 24 hours if this is your first notice. Arizona law requires HOAs to follow their own enforcement procedures. If their bylaws say 30 days, they have to give you 30 days. You could park the truck elsewhere to avoid the hassle, but legally, you'd have grounds to fight this. What if they tow it anyway? Then they'd be liable for an illegal tow. You could sue for damages, legal fees, the whole 9 yards. But Yannick, is it worth the fight? HOAs can make your life miserable if they decide to target you. I thought about that for a moment. Marcus was right. I could park my truck at the main office. We had a fenced lot with plenty of space. It would mean driving my personal car home every night and picking up the truck every morning, adding 30 minutes to my commute each way. But it would solve the problem. But something about Patricia Zimmerman's condescending tone, her complete dismissal of any discussion, her rush to threaten and punish rather than work with me, it got under my skin. I'd worked too hard building my business to let some power-hungry HOA president push me around over something this petty. Let them tow it, I said. I want to see what happens. Marcus sighed. Your call. Document everything. Take photos, keep all correspondence, and call me as soon as they hook it up. The next morning, I woke up at 6 and positioned myself at my living room window with a cup of coffee and my phone. My truck sat in the driveway exactly where I'd left it. The sun rose over the desert, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. It was almost 7:30 when I saw a silver BMW sedan pull up and park across the street. A woman got out, mid-50s, blonde hair cut in one of those speak-to-the-manager styles, wearing expensive athleisure wear and designer sunglasses despite the early hour. She stood at the end of my driveway, checking her watch repeatedly. At exactly 7:30, she made a phone call. I could see her gesturing as she talked, pointing at my truck. After about 5 minutes, she ended the call and stood there with her arms crossed, waiting. This had to be Patricia Zimmerman. 20 minutes passed. Then 30. Patricia kept checking her watch and her phone, clearly agitated. She made another call, this one more animated, her free hand waving around as she spoke. My phone rang. It was dispatch. Hey boss, we've got a weird situation, said Jennifer, my morning dispatcher. Got a call from an HOA about an unauthorized vehicle that needs towing. Gave an address on Sagaro Drive. Let me guess, 2847 Sagaro Drive. Yeah, how'd you know? Oh wait, she paused. That's your address. Yep, tell them we can't take the job. Conflict of interest, Jennifer laughed. This is going to be good. The woman on the phone was super demanding, said it was urgent, said she'd been waiting 45 minutes already. Just politely decline and suggest she try another company. I watched Patricia take the call. Even from inside my house, I could see her body language change. Her posture stiffened and she started pacing. The call ended abruptly, and she immediately dialed someone else. Over the next hour, I watched Patricia make at least 6 more phone calls. She'd moved from standing at the end of my driveway to sitting in her BMW with the door open, apparently running the air conditioning. Every company she called was probably telling her the same thing. They couldn't take the job. See, here's what Patricia didn't know about the towing industry in Scottsdale. There were only 4 major companies that handled HOA calls, and I knew all of them. 3 were competitors I'd been friendly with for years. We'd helped each other out during busy periods, referred overflow work, and maintained professional relationships. The 4th was a company I'd actually acquired 2 years ago, but had kept operating under its original name for brand recognition. More importantly, when an HOA sets up a contract with a towing company, they usually don't specify just one company. They create an approved vendor list. I'd bet anything that Meadowbrook Estates had Quinn's Towing on that list, possibly as the primary contractor. Patricia had probably just called the first number she found in the HOA's records, which had routed to my dispatch. By 9 o'clock, Patricia was out of her car and marching up to my front door. I let her ring the doorbell twice before opening it. "Can I help you?" I asked pleasantly. "Are you Yannick Quinn?" "I am. I'm Patricia Zimmerman, president of the Meadowbrook Estates HOA. I believe you received a tow warning yesterday regarding your commercial vehicle." She gestured toward my truck without looking at it. I did. The vehicle was supposed to be removed within 24 hours. That deadline has passed. I've been trying to have it towed, but I'm experiencing some difficulty with our contracted companies. So I'm here to give you one final warning. Remove this vehicle immediately, or I'll pursue further action. What kind of further action? Daily fines. $500 per day until you comply. And I'll call every towing company in Arizona if I have to until I find one willing to remove that eyesore from our community. I took a sip of my coffee, which had gone cold while I watched her performance outside. "Miss Zimmerman, I reviewed the CC and Articus. Section 8.3 requires you to provide 30 days' notice before taking enforcement action. Your sticker yesterday was my first notice, which means I have 30 days to address the situation." Her face flushed red. "Don't quote the bylaws to me. I helped write them. That 30-day period is a courtesy for minor violations. This is a major violation of community standards." "Show me where it says that in the CC and Articus." "I don't have to justify our enforcement procedures to you. Just move the truck." "Or what? You'll tow it. Good luck with that." Her eyes narrowed. "Why do you say that?" "Just an observation. You've been out there making phone calls for over an hour. Seems like you're having trouble finding someone to do the job." "That's none of your concern. But I will find someone, and when I do, you'll be responsible for all costs, plus the daily fines, plus any legal fees if I have to pursue this through our attorneys." "You should check your HOA's approved vendor list," I said. "See who's actually on contract to do your towing." Something in my tone must have tipped her off. Her expression changed from angry to suspicious. "What are you talking about, Quinn's Towing?" "The company whose name is on the side of my truck. That's my company. I own it. And unless I'm mistaken, we're probably the primary towing contractor for Meadowbrook Estates, which means you've been calling me all morning, asking me to tow my own truck." The color drained from her face, then rushed back even redder than before. "That's impossible. You can't be on the approved vendor list and violate the parking rules. That's a conflict of interest." "No conflict. I'm a homeowner and a business owner. 2 separate things." My company has a contract with your HOA because we do good work at fair prices. Where I park my personal work truck has nothing to do with that contract. This isn't over, she said, her voice shaking with rage. I'll take this to the board. I'll have you removed from the vendor list. I'll make sure every resident in this community knows about your flagrant disregard for our rules. Feel free, but you might want to read Section 8.3 more carefully. And you should probably consult with the HOA's lawyer before you start issuing $500 daily fines, because that's not going to hold up when I challenge it. She spun on her heel and stormed back to her BMW, peeling out of the neighborhood like she was leaving a drag race. I closed the door and called Marcus. This is going to get worse before it gets better. What happened? I filled him in on the morning's events. Marcus laughed so hard I had to hold the phone away from my ear. Oh man, you really got under her skin. But seriously, Yannick, watch your back. HOA board presidents like her don't back down when they're embarrassed. She's going to come at you hard. Let her. I'm not doing anything wrong. Legally, you're in the right, but the law and HOA politics are two different animals. Just be prepared. He wasn't wrong. That afternoon, I found 3 more violation notices on my door. One claimed my lawn was a 1/4 inch too long, citing Section 5.2.1 that required grass to be maintained between 2 and 3 inches in height. Another said my garbage cans were visible from the street, violating Section 6.1.4, even though they were in the same side yard location they'd been in for 3 months. The third claimed my house number wasn't clearly visible, violating Section 3.7.2. I took photos of everything. My lawn was perfectly maintained at 2.5 inches. I'd measured it myself. My garbage cans were behind a gate in the side yard, invisible unless you walked up my driveway and craned your neck around the corner. My house numbers were regulation size, clearly visible, and identical to every other house on the block. Patricia was building a case, trying to paint me as a serial violator to justify her aggressive stance on the truck. Over the next week, I received 14 more violation notices. My mailbox was crooked. My front door wreath wasn't in compliance with the approved decoration list. I'd left my garage door open during the day, which was apparently a security violation. My outdoor light fixtures were the wrong color temperature. The list went on and on. I documented everything, took photos proving that each violation was either false or so minor that it was clearly pretextual, and consulted with Marcus about next steps. She's harassing you, Marcus said. This is clearly retaliatory. Have you gotten any actual fines yet? No, just notices. They all say I have 30 days to cure the violation. Good. Let the 30 days run on the truck. Don't move it. Don't engage with her beyond what's necessary and keep documenting. If she tries to fine you or take any actual enforcement action, we'll respond with a cease and desist letter. But Patricia wasn't content to wait 30 days. The following Tuesday, I came home from work to find a notice taped to my door announcing an emergency HOA board meeting scheduled for that Thursday evening. The agenda listed one item: discussion and vote regarding violation enforcement at 2847 Sagaro Drive. I cleared my schedule and showed up at the meeting, held in the community clubhouse. About 30 residents were scattered around the room, most looking bored or confused about why they were there. The board sat at a table at the front, Patricia in the center, flanked by 4 other board members I'd never met. Patricia called the meeting to order and immediately launched into her presentation. She had a PowerPoint, which would have been impressive if it wasn't so clearly a hit job. Slide after slide showed photos of my truck, my lawn, my garbage cans, my house numbers, all with red circles and arrows highlighting supposed violations. "As you can see," Patricia said, her voice taking on a lecturing tone, "Mr. Quinn has demonstrated a repeated and willful disregard for our community standards. His commercial vehicle is an eyesore that diminishes property values. His failure to maintain his property according to our clearly stated guidelines shows a lack of respect for his neighbors and our community." I raised my hand. "I'd like to respond to these allegations." Patricia looked like she wanted to refuse, but one of the other board members, a man in his 60s wearing a golf shirt, nodded. "Let him speak, Patricia. That's only fair." I stood up and pulled out my phone, connecting it to the projector. "I've prepared my own presentation if you don't mind." Patricia's jaw clenched, but she stepped aside. My slides were simple. Each one showed one of Patricia's photos next to my own photo taken from a different angle or with proper context. The overgrown lawn was actually perfectly maintained, with a measuring tape in my photo showing the proper height. The visible garbage cans required someone to trespass onto my property to photograph. The crooked mailbox was at the exact same angle as 6 other mailboxes on my street, all visible in my wide-angle shot. "I moved into this neighborhood 3 months ago," I said, addressing the room. "In that time, I've maintained my property exactly according to the standards in our CC and Articus. I've been a quiet neighbor, I've paid my HOA dues on time, and I've tried to be a good member of this community. My truck is the only legitimate concern Miss Zimmerman has raised, and even that's debatable. It's a pickup truck, not a dump truck or a bucket truck. It's not commercial equipment. It's a standard consumer vehicle that happens to have my company logo on it. I use it for work, yes, but I also use it as my daily driver. It's parked in my driveway, not on the street, and it's not blocking anything or creating any safety hazard. More importantly, Miss Zimmerman didn't follow proper procedure. She gave me 24 hours to remove the vehicle when your own bylaws require 30 days' notice. When I pointed this out, she began issuing violation after violation for increasingly trivial matters. This isn't about community standards. This is personal. The room had gotten quiet. People were looking at Patricia now, not me. One of the other board members, a woman in her 40s, raised her hand. "Patricia, is it true you only gave him 24 hours? "The commercial vehicle provision is clear," Patricia said, her voice tight. "I have discretion as president to determine the severity of violations." "But the bylaws say 30 days, the woman pressed. "That's not discretionary. That's policy." I was attempting to resolve this quickly and avoid exactly this kind of confrontation, Patricia said. "If Mr. Quinn had simply complied with a reasonable request, we wouldn't be here." The golf shirt man leaned forward. "Patricia, I've got to say, some of these violations look pretty weak. The garbage can thing. My cans are in the exact same spot as his. Are you going to cite me next? This isn't about anyone else's property," Patricia snapped. "We're here to discuss Mr. Quinn's violations." "No," I said firmly. "We're here because you're abusing your position to harass me for challenging you, and I'm not going to let it continue." The meeting devolved into argument. Several residents spoke up, some supporting Patricia's strict interpretation of the rules, others questioning whether this was really the best use of the HOA's time and resources. The board members seemed split, with Patricia and one other member taking a hard line while the other 3 looked increasingly uncomfortable. Finally, the golf shirt man made a motion. "I move that we table this matter until our next regular board meeting, and that, in the meantime, we consult with our attorney about the proper procedure for handling these kinds of violations." The motion passed 3-2, with Patricia and her ally voting against it. As the meeting broke up, Patricia cornered me near the exit. "This isn't over," she hissed, keeping her voice low enough that others wouldn't hear. "You think you're clever, but you don't know who you're dealing with. I've removed board members I didn't like. I've gotten people kicked out of this community. You're nobody special." "You're right," I said. "I'm nobody special. I'm just a homeowner who wants to park his truck in his own driveway. If that's too much to ask, then maybe you're not fit to be HOA president." Her face went purple. "Get out." Gladly. I walked to my truck, which I'd deliberately driven to the meeting, and drove home. My phone was ringing before I got there. It was Marcus. "I heard about the meeting," he said. "One of the board members called me. Listen, this woman is apparently well known in the HOA community around Scottsdale. She's been president of Meadowbrook Estates for 6 years, and before that, she was on the board of 2 other communities. She's got a reputation for being extremely aggressive about enforcement. So I should just give in. Park somewhere else." "I'm not saying that. I'm saying be careful. People like her don't fight fair. If she can't get you through official channels, she'll find another way. Let her try." But Marcus's warning proved prescient. Over the next 2 weeks, things escalated in ways I hadn't anticipated. First, my business started getting negative reviews online. 1-star ratings on Google, Yelp, and Facebook, all posted by accounts with no history and generic names, all saying essentially the same thing. Quinn's Towing was unprofessional, damaged vehicles, and overcharged customers. The reviews were obviously fake, but they were hurting my business's reputation. Then I started getting complaints about my trucks from other HOAs we serviced. 3 communities called to say they'd received anonymous reports that my drivers were reckless or unprofessional. When I investigated, I found nothing. No incidents, no complaints from actual witnesses, just anonymous calls to HOA offices. My employees started reporting suspicious activity too. One of my drivers, Kevin, called to say someone had been following him during his shift. A silver BMW that stayed several cars back, but appeared on multiple calls throughout the day. When Kevin tried to confront the driver at a stoplight, the BMW sped off. Another driver, Sarah, found a note on her personal car when she left work. "Your boss is a criminal. Find a better job." Patricia was waging a campaign against me, using every tool she had to make my life miserable. I documented everything and gave it all to Marcus. "Can we get a restraining order or something? This is harassment." "Maybe, but we'd need to prove it's her. All of this is anonymous. The reviews, the complaints, the notes, there's no direct link to Patricia Zimmerman. Who else would it be? A lawyer needs evidence, not assumptions." "Keep documenting, but be careful not to retaliate. Don't do anything that she could use against you." The situation came to a head 3 weeks after the board meeting. I came home from a long day dealing with a multi-vehicle accident on the I-10 to find my driveway empty. My truck was gone. For a second, I thought I'd been robbed. Then I saw the bright orange tow notice stuck to my garage door. "Vehicle removed for HOA violation. Contact Desert Valley Towing for recovery." Desert Valley Towing was a company I'd never heard of, which was strange because I knew every legitimate towing company in the Phoenix area. I called the number on the notice. "Desert Valley Towing," a man answered, sounding bored. "This is Yannick Quinn. You towed my truck from 2847 Seguero Drive today. I need to know where it is and how much the recovery will cost." "Hold on, let me check." I heard papers shuffling. "Yeah, got it. Silver Ford F-250 commercial markings. It's at our yard in Mesa. Recovery fee is $850, plus storage starts tomorrow at $60 a day." $850. That's 3 times the normal rate for a local tow. That's the HOA contract rate. You got a problem, take it up with them. You want your truck or not? I got the address and hung up. Then I called Marcus. They towed it, I said. Used some company I've never heard of and they're trying to charge me $850. Did you authorize the tow? Of course not. This is theft. Good, don't pay them. Call the police and report your vehicle stolen. Then we'll go after the HOA and the towing company for damages. I called the Scottsdale Police Department and filed a report. The officer who took my statement was skeptical at first until I showed him all my documentation. The HOA bylaws showing the 30-day requirement, the timeline proving Patricia had ignored it, and the notice showing I'd never authorized the tow. This is a civil matter, the officer said. The HOA claims they had authority to tow. You claim they didn't. That's for a court to decide. But they took my property without permission. How is that not theft? Because there's a contract dispute about whether they had the right to take it. Look, I understand you're frustrated, but we can't arrest someone over an HOA disagreement. Get a lawyer, take them to court, but this isn't a criminal matter. I wanted to argue, but I could see it was pointless. Instead, I called the towing company back. I'm coming to get my truck. Have it ready at the gate. You got $850? No, but you're going to give me my truck anyway because you towed it illegally. The man laughed. Good luck with that. I drove to Mesa with Jennifer, my dispatcher, as a witness. Desert Valley Towing operated out of a chain-link fenced lot behind a strip mall, the kind of place that looked more like a chop shop than a legitimate business. A hand-painted sign hung on the fence, and the office was a single-wide trailer that had seen better days. I knocked on the trailer door. The same bored man from the phone answered, huge belly straining against a stained T-shirt, cigarette dangling from his lips. You the guy with the F-250? That's me. I'm here for my truck. You got the money, I'm not paying. You towed it illegally. Arizona law requires written authorization from the property owner for a private property tow. You don't have that. He scratched his belly. Got authorization from the HOA. They run the property, that's good enough. No, it's not. An HOA doesn't own private property. They have authority over common areas, but my driveway is my property. You towed my vehicle from my property without my permission. That's illegal. Look, buddy, I don't got time for a legal debate. You want the truck, pay the fee. You don't, it sits here and you pay storage too. Let me see my truck. He shrugged and led us into the lot. My F-250 sat near the back, and my heart sank when I saw it. The driver's side mirror was dangling by its wires. The rear bumper had a fresh dent, and the vinyl wrap on the passenger side was torn and peeling. What the hell did you do to my truck? I said, my voice rising. Wasn't me. Must have been like that already. Like hell it was. This truck was in perfect condition this morning. Jennifer was taking photos with her phone, documenting every bit of damage. Yannick, look at this. She pointed to scratches on the truck bed. These are fresh. You can see the metal underneath. The man shrugged again. File a claim with your insurance, not my problem. I was furious, but I forced myself to stay calm. I'm taking my truck. Either you give me the keys, or I'm calling the police and reporting it stolen. Go ahead and call them. They'll tell you the same thing I am. Pay the fee or the truck stays here. I pulled out my phone and dialed the Scottsdale police non-emergency number. While I waited on hold, I saw the man make a call of his own, turning away and speaking in low tones. The police dispatcher told me what I already expected. They couldn't force the towing company to release the vehicle. It was a civil matter. I'd need to go through the courts. I hung up and considered my options. Let's go, I told Jennifer. I need to regroup. As we walked back to my car, I noticed something interesting. A silver BMW sedan was parked on the street outside the lot, mostly hidden behind a delivery van. I couldn't see the driver, but I'd bet anything it was Patricia, probably watching to see how her plan played out. I drove Jennifer back to our office and spent the rest of the evening researching Desert Valley towing. What I found was enlightening. The company had been registered just 6 months ago to a man named Robert Hendricks. A quick search showed that Hendricks had been cited multiple times by the Arizona Department of Transportation for operating without proper licensing and insurance. He'd been sued 3 times in the past 2 years for property damage during tows. More interesting, Hendricks had no obvious connection to Meadowbrook Estates HOA. There was no contract on file, no approved vendor agreement, nothing. Patricia had apparently hired him off book to do this job. I called Marcus with this information. "This is good," he said. "Really good. If the HOA hired an unlicensed, uninsured towing company without board approval and without a proper contract, Patricia could be personally liable for any damages. And if Hendricks doesn't have insurance, she might be on the hook for everything. So what do we do? First, file a complaint with the Arizona Department of Weights and Measures. They regulate towing companies. Report the illegal tow, the property damage, and Hendricks's lack of proper licensing. Second, I'll draft a demand letter to the HOA and to Patricia personally. They have 48 hours to return your vehicle and pay for repairs, or we file suit for conversion, harassment, and violations of Arizona's HOA statutes. What about getting my truck back now? Legally, you could hire another company to go get it. You own the truck and Hendricks has no valid lien on it, but that could get messy. Give me until tomorrow. I'll see if I can convince him to do the right thing." I didn't sleep well that night. My truck wasn't just a vehicle, it was a major business asset. Without it, I was down to 11 trucks during our busy season, which meant potentially turning away calls and losing revenue. Plus, there was the principle of the thing. Patricia had gone way over the line, and I wasn't going to let her get away with it. The next morning, Marcus called. Good news and bad news. Good news is I scared Hendricks pretty badly. He knows he messed up. Bad news is he won't release the truck without payment because he says Patricia owes him money and the truck is his leverage. What? Apparently, Patricia promised him a contract with the HOA for future towing work if he handled this job for her. Now she's not returning his calls, and he's out the cost of the tow plus whatever damage he did to your truck that you're going to claim. He figures if he holds onto the truck, either you'll pay him or Patricia will have to deal with him. So I'm caught in the middle of their dispute. Essentially. But I've got a solution. I told him that if he releases the truck to you immediately, you won't pursue criminal charges for the illegal tow and the property damage. He's looking at potential felony charges if this goes sideways, and he knows it. He agreed to release the truck this afternoon at 2 o'clock. You just have to go pick it up. What about payment? Nothing. He's releasing it with no fees, no storage charges, nothing. In exchange, you sign a release saying you won't pursue charges against him personally. We'll still go after the HOA and Patricia, but Hendricks gets to walk away. And my damages, the truck is messed up. That comes out of Patricia's pocket or the HOA's insurance. Hendricks is judgment-proof anyway. He's got no assets. Getting your truck back and going after the people who actually have money is the smart play. At 2 o'clock, I was back at the Desert Valley lot with Jennifer and 2 of my other drivers, just in case things got complicated. Hendricks was waiting at the gate, looking nervous. Got the release? He asked. Marcus had sent it over and I had a printed copy. I handed it over, Hendricks read it twice, then unlocked the gate. Keys are in it. Look, man, I'm sorry about the damage. That was my idiot nephew on the wheel. He don't know how to hook up right. I'll testify about the HOA lady if you need it. She played me, said this was all legit, said she'd get me on contract with the community. Soon as I did the job, she ghosted me. I might take you up on that testimony, I said, but right now I just want my truck. I inspected it more thoroughly in daylight. In addition to the mirror, bumper, and wrap damage I'd seen yesterday, there were scratches on the hood and a cracked tail light. I estimated $3,000 to $4,000 in repairs. Jennifer documented everything with photos and video while one of my drivers checked the mechanical systems. Everything seemed to work fine. It was all cosmetic damage, but it was still infuriating. I drove the truck back to my house and parked it in exactly the same spot where it had been towed from. If Patricia wanted to escalate further, I was ready. Marcus filed suit against the HOA and Patricia Zimmerman personally the next day. The complaint was extensive: conversion, harassment, violation of Arizona HOA statutes, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and tortious interference with business operations. We asked for actual damages, punitive damages, attorney's fees, and an injunction preventing further harassment. The response was immediate. That evening, I got a call from an attorney named Douglas Reeves representing the HOA. "Mr. Quinn, I've been retained by Meadowbrook Estates to address this matter. I've reviewed the complaint and I'd like to discuss a settlement." "I'm listening." "The HOA is prepared to offer $5,000 to cover your repairs and any incidental expenses, along with a written apology and a guarantee that there will be no further enforcement action regarding your vehicle. In exchange, you dismiss the lawsuit and sign a mutual release." "Not interested." "That's a generous offer, Mr. Quinn. Litigation is expensive and time-consuming. You'd be smart to consider it." "Your client, or more specifically, your client's president, has spent the last month harassing me, filing false violations, posting fake reviews about my business, following my employees, and ultimately stealing my truck and damaging it. $5,000 doesn't begin to cover the actual damages, let alone the punitive damages for her conduct." Ms. Zimmerman denies any personal involvement beyond her duties as HOA president. The decision to tow the vehicle was made in accordance with the HOA's enforcement authority. "That's demonstrably false, and I've got documentation to prove it. Your bylaws require 30 days notice. She gave me 24 hours. She hired an unlicensed towing company with no board approval and no contract. That's not HOA enforcement, that's personal vendetta." Reeves was quiet for a moment. "What would it take to settle this?" $25,000 for actual damages and attorney's fees. Patricia's resignation as HOA president. A formal acknowledgement that the tow was unauthorized and that my truck doesn't violate any HOA rules. And an amendment to the CC and Articus, clarifying that standard pickup trucks with commercial markings are allowed. That's outrageous. You're asking the board to fire their president and change the rules just for you. I'm asking for accountability and reasonable rules. If that's outrageous, we'll let a jury decide." Reeves hung up after promising to relay my demands to the board. 3 days later, there was an emergency HOA board meeting. This time, I didn't attend. Instead, Marcus went as my representative. He called me afterward. "It was a bloodbath," he said, sounding almost gleeful. "Patricia tried to paint herself as the victim, said you were a bully using your business connections to intimidate the HOA. But the other board members had done their homework. They'd talked to Hendricks, they'd reviewed the bylaws, they'd consulted with their own lawyer. They know she went rogue." "So what happened?" "They voted 3-2 to accept your settlement terms. Patricia and her one ally voted against it, but she's outnumbered. She has to resign within 30 days. The HOA will pay the $25,000, and they're going to propose the CC&R amendment at the next annual meeting. She's actually resigning. She doesn't have a choice. If she refuses, the board will remove her for cause. Apparently, this isn't the first time she's gone off script. There have been other complaints about her tactics, but nobody wanted to challenge her because she was so aggressive. You opened the floodgates. I felt a wave of relief wash over me. It was finally over, except it wasn't, not quite. 2 weeks later, I got a call from the Scottsdale Police Department. Detective Sarah Chen asked if I could come to the station to discuss an ongoing investigation. What kind of investigation? I asked. I'd rather discuss it in person. It concerns your dispute with the Meadowbrook Estates, HOA. I called Marcus, and we went together. Detective Chen met us in a conference room, a thick file folder on the table in front of her. "Thank you for coming in," she said. "We've been investigating Patricia Zimmerman for several months now, and your complaint added some important pieces to the puzzle." "Investigating her for what?" "Fraud, embezzlement, and identity theft. Are you aware that Miss Zimmerman has been HOA president at 3 different communities over the past 8 years. My attorney mentioned something about that. At each community, money went missing. Small amounts at first, then larger sums. She'd create fake invoices for services that were never rendered, inflate legitimate expenses and pocket the difference, and in one case, she actually took out a line of credit in the HOA's name and diverted the funds to her personal account. I stared at her, and nobody caught this. HOA boards are usually volunteers who don't have time for detailed financial oversight. They trust their president to handle the day-to-day operations. By the time anyone noticed discrepancies, Patricia had already moved on to the next community. How much money are we talking about? Total across all 3 communities, almost $400,000. Marcus let out a low whistle. That's a felony, multiple felonies. Exactly. We've been building a case, but we needed more evidence of her pattern of behavior. Your documentation of the harassment, the illegal tow, her hiring of an unlicensed towing company under the table, it all helps establish her willingness to abuse her authority for personal gain. Personal gain. She wasn't making money off harassing me. No, but she was protecting her position. If you'd succeeded in getting her removed from the board earlier, we might have gotten involved sooner. She needed to discredit you to maintain control. Detective Chen opened the file and showed us bank statements, invoices, and emails. The evidence was damning. Patricia had been systematically stealing from Meadowbrook Estates for 3 years, using increasingly sophisticated methods to hide the theft. "We're making arrests today," Chen said. "I wanted to give you a heads up because this will likely become public and your name might come up as a witness." "Whatever you need," I said. "I want to help." That afternoon, Patricia Zimmerman was arrested at her home and charged with 12 counts of fraud, 6 counts of embezzlement, and 3 counts of identity theft. The news spread through Meadowbrook Estates like wildfire. By evening, my doorbell was ringing every 15 minutes. Neighbors I'd never met stopped by to apologize for not speaking up sooner, to thank me for standing up to Patricia, to share their own stories of her harassment and intimidation. One elderly woman, Mrs. Rodriguez from 3 streets over, told me Patricia had threatened to fine her $5,000 because her rose bushes were the wrong shade of pink. Another neighbor, a young couple with twin toddlers, said Patricia had reported them to Child Protective Services, claiming they were neglectful parents after they disagreed with her about playground rules. The scope of Patricia's bullying went far beyond what I'd experienced. She'd created a climate of fear in the entire community, and people had been too intimidated to challenge her. The next HOA board meeting was packed. Every seat was filled and people lined the walls. The remaining board members addressed the community, apologized for not reining in Patricia sooner, and committed to a full financial audit and reforms to prevent anything like this from happening again. The golf shirt man, whose name I learned was Donald Perry, had been elected temporary president. He approached me after the meeting. "Mr. Quinn, on behalf of the board and the community, I want to apologize for everything you went through. You had every right to sue us for a lot more than you did, and I appreciate your reasonableness." "I just wanted to park my truck in my driveway," I said, "and you can. In fact, the board voted tonight to fast-track the CC&R amendment. We're not going to wait for the annual meeting. We'll do a special vote by mail, and I'm confident it'll pass." A pickup truck with a business logo is hardly the end of the world. I appreciate that. I also want to say, we reviewed your company's contract with the HOA. You've been doing great work for us at very fair prices. I hope this whole mess doesn't affect our business relationship. "It won't," I said. "My company provides a service. What happened with Patricia was personal, not professional." Donald shook my hand. "You're a better man than most, thank you." The criminal case against Patricia moved quickly. Faced with overwhelming evidence, her attorney negotiated a plea deal. She pleaded guilty to 8 counts of fraud and 4 counts of embezzlement in exchange for the other charges being dropped. The judge sentenced her to 6 years in prison and ordered her to pay full restitution to all 3 HOA communities she'd stolen from. The civil case settled quickly after that. The HOA's insurance paid for my truck repairs, my attorney's fees, and a small additional amount for my trouble. More importantly, the CC&R amendment passed with 92% of homeowners voting in favor. Standard pickup trucks, even with commercial markings, were now explicitly allowed in driveways. Life returned to normal, or as normal as it gets when you run a towing company. My truck sat in my driveway every night, exactly where it belonged. The fake online reviews disappeared after I reported them to the platforms with evidence of the harassment. My business continued to grow. 6 months after Patricia's arrest, I was having coffee on my back patio when my doorbell rang. It was Donald Perry again, this time with a woman I didn't recognize. "Yannick, this is Ellen Martinez. She's running for HOA board and I wanted to introduce you. I think you two should talk." Ellen was a paralegal who worked in real estate law. She'd moved to Meadowbrook Estates a year before I had and had been just as frustrated with Patricia's tactics. "I want to make sure what happened to you never happens to anyone else here," she said. "I'm proposing a complete overhaul of our enforcement procedures. Mandatory training for board members, clear escalation policies, and an ombudsman position to handle disputes before they become legal issues." "Sounds like exactly what this community needs," I said. Ellen won her board election easily. Over the next year, she and Donald transformed the HOA from a source of dread into something that actually served the community. Enforcement became reasonable, focused on genuine problems rather than petty violations. The board became transparent, publishing minutes and financial statements online. Neighbors started attending meetings not out of fear, but because they actually wanted to participate. I even joined the Architectural Review Committee, using my experience with commercial properties to help other homeowners navigate the approval process for renovations and improvements. One Saturday morning, almost exactly a year after Patricia had first put that tow warning on my truck, I was washing it in my driveway when a family pulled up in a moving truck. New neighbors, moving into the house directly across from mine. The father, a man about my age, got out and stretched. His eyes landed on my truck, taking in the Quinn's towing logo and phone number. "Hey, you run a towing company," he called over. "I do." "That's awesome. We're moving in today. I'm Tom, this is my wife Rachel, and our kids are around here somewhere. Nice to meet you." "Yannick. Welcome to the neighborhood." "Thanks. Hey, random question, is the HOA here pretty strict?" Our last place had an HOA that was insane about everything. "I do landscaping and I've got a work truck too. Am I going to have problems?" I smiled. "No problems at all. Park wherever you want." "The HOA here is actually pretty reasonable." "That's a relief." Tom looked at his moving truck blocking the street. "I don't suppose you guys do furniture moving?" "Not officially, but I've got some strong guys on payroll who do side work. Let me make a call." Within an hour, I had 3 of my drivers helping Tom's family unload their moving truck, refusing payment but accepting Rachel's offer of pizza for everyone. We sat on their front lawn eating pizza, and I told them the abbreviated version of my HOA saga. "You're kidding," Tom said. "The HOA president went to prison, 6 years. She's got about 5 left. And that all started because she tried to tow your truck." "That's where it started. But honestly, it would have blown up eventually. She was stealing from everyone, harassing people, abusing her power. I just happened to be the one who pushed back at the right time." Rachel shook her head. "We almost bought in a different neighborhood because we were so worried about HOA drama. I'm glad we ended up here." "So am I," I said, meaning it. The sun was setting over the desert, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples. My truck sat in my driveway, clean and shining, my company's logo visible from down the street. No violation notices, no threats, no drama. Just a regular neighborhood where regular people lived their lives and parked their trucks in their own driveways, without worrying about power-hungry HOA presidents with grudges and criminal tendencies. Looking back on the whole experience, I could have saved myself a lot of trouble by just parking my truck somewhere else. But some battles are worth fighting, not because they're easy or convenient, but because backing down means letting bullies win. Patricia Zimmerman thought she could intimidate me into compliance. She thought her position as HOA president gave her unlimited authority to harass and threaten anyone who didn't fall in line. She didn't realize that pushing too hard against the wrong person could bring her entire house of cards crashing down. The irony of her calling a towing company to tow a towing company owner's truck would have been funny if it hadn't led to so much conflict. But in the end, that irony was what saved me. If I'd been any other homeowner, I might not have had the resources or knowledge to fight back effectively. I knew the towing industry, I knew the laws, and I knew when something was wrong. As Tom and Rachel headed inside to continue unpacking, and my drivers headed home with leftover pizza, I stood in my driveway for a moment, just appreciating the quiet of the evening. Somewhere in a state prison, Patricia was probably regretting her choices. Somewhere in the Meadowbrook Estates community, other homeowners were living without fear of arbitrary fines and harassment for the first time in years. And in my driveway, my truck sat exactly where it was supposed to be, where it had every right to be, and where it would continue to be for as long as I lived in this house. Sometimes standing your ground is the hardest choice to make, but sometimes it's the only choice that makes sense. Patricia learned that lesson the hard way. I just hoped that anyone else tempted to abuse their HOA authority would learn from her mistakes before they followed her path to prison. The story could have ended badly. I could have given in, moved my truck, and spent the next however many years resenting the HOA and avoiding my neighbors. Patricia could have gotten away with her embezzlement and harassment for years more, victimizing more communities and more homeowners. Instead, one stubborn towing company owner with a truck he refused to move ended up exposing a criminal, reforming an HOA, and making his neighborhood a better place to live. I walked back into my house, content with how things had turned out. Tomorrow I'd be back at work, running my business, helping people in their worst moments when their cars broke down or they got into accidents. Tonight, I was just a homeowner in a quiet Scottsdale neighborhood, grateful for reasonable bylaws and decent neighbors. And if anyone ever asked me about that time an HOA Karen threatened to tow my truck without realizing I owned the towing company, well, I had one hell of a story to tell.